Okay, fellas, welcome back to some more SBC gaming news, and today we have sort of a more normal episode for you guys. The news is finally slowing down a little bit, but however, I did see a bunch of new items that I want to cover. They're in queue for next week's episode, so look forward to that. But yeah, anyways, why don't we start off with some comments, and then we'll go into the regular format of new hardware, followed by buyer advice, and then bugs, fixes, and updates, user creations, and then channel spotlight. I found a pretty cool channel today, so I'll show that to you guys. As always, everything will be timestamped below so you can skip around to whatever interests you. But yeah, thank you for dropping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. Right now for some comments. I got a lot of nice comments. Thank you guys very much. I love reading them. They mean a lot to me. So we got this one from JStation3. Love this tech channel. Love the chill discussion format. For guys like me who don't get a ton of time to surf Reddit, channel like yours are perfect. Rock steady, brother. Thanks, bro. Thank you for the kind words. Alright, we got two comments from Gerardo Facundo6721. You got my name right, bro. No worries. Thanks for saying that. I have a lot of difficulty reading names because there's no punctuation. So I don't know where the name begins or where it ends. Plus, it's probably in a different language, so, I can't pronounce it correctly. Anyways, Gerardo also said, definitely picking up the cube now that I know more. Yeah, honestly, I saw a preview video of the Anbernic Cube, and it looks like a really nice console. Like, if I'm being honest, I think I would rather have the Cube over the SP because the primary reason I want it is to emulate 3DS and Nintendo DS. A lot of systems have trouble emulating it because you really need a touchscreen, and a dual screen format is a little difficult to display on like a 4:3 screen. Even a 16:9 screen, it's sort of okay because you can display it side by side. But honestly, it's meant to be displayed vertically. Plus, you need a touchscreen. Now, I tried playing some games with touchscreens, and it's not really easy, so I use it on the Steam Deck. And honestly, the reason why I prefer the original DS is you need a stylus for some games. And there's some games where you like close the console, use the microphone. I know Drastic has ways to kind of emulate that functionality, but it's just not the same feeling. For me, that's why I think the original DS and the 3DS, you just can't be beat, in my opinion. But if I were to get a console that can emulate it, the Cube looks very appealing. Plus, you can play some PS2 and GameCube, so that's a bonus. Alright, now we have this comment from Jack AP. Hey, you missed Taki's news about his $150 FPGA OLED handheld. Not gonna lie, it's gonna be day one purchase for me. If I gotta try FPGA upscale games for the first time in my life, why not on OLED? That's crazy. Yeah, thanks for commenting, Jack. Hey, give me some more details, bro. So I don't know all the news. I get all my news from Reddit and the subreddits. So if I don't see anyone post anything, I just don't know about it. So I did hear about Taki making a Mr. clone, but I didn't know that he was going to make a handheld with OLED in it for 150. That's pretty crazy. That's a great deal depending on how it's oriented. It may be a better choice than the Aya Neo Pocket DMG, but we'll see. So I'm looking forward to more news. More competition is great. So before we begin the official segment, I like to go over one or two items that I thought were very interesting, and I put those first. So we got this post from Stoned Edge from the SBC Gaming subreddit. It's titled Gameforce Ace Drama. So this entire post is about, allegedly, the founder of Gameforce was one dude named Gao, and the orders for the Gameforce Ace are not being fulfilled. The orders that are being fulfilled don't work properly. So I encountered a news item about the Gameforce Ace a while back, and it was one post, and this person was essentially saying that it had a lot of issues. So it's kind of sad that a lot of people who paid over $200 for this didn't even get one. So this is also functioning as a PSA. Don't order anything from Gameforce, you might not get it. But yeah, there's some posts here where they're like, oh yeah, I got one, it's useless, I couldn't do a refund or a chargeback. So yeah, always be careful when purchasing things. If you want more information, you can take a look in the thread. And obviously take everything with a grain of salt, as anything can be faked online. So yeah, this goes back to my stance about never pre-order anything when it comes to these handhelds. There is absolutely zero reason to pre-order these devices, especially from these companies, because they don't have a good track record of having a good QA process in place to provide a quality product. Now, some companies are getting better than others, like Anbernic is sort of reliable, Retroid is sort of reliable, AYN, and those companies are sort of reliable, but a lot of these companies, you can't really trust them to provide you a quality device. It's always a risk in terms of you may get a lemon, or you may get something that works perfectly, or you may have to tweak something or fix something yourself. So yeah, always wait, never pre-order. There's absolutely no reason or benefit to pre-ordering for many reasons. For starters, the first batches are usually the worst. They're never like better than the later batches because they find errors, they fix the process, because they don't want to lose sales. And honestly, you might see flaws that you might not have noticed because people are actually putting reviews out. So yeah, just wait and see how the device is like. Wait and see if they're actually getting delivered, and then buy it. The only maybe slight benefit is usually pre-order prices are lower. It's only by a little bit, so in my opinion, it's not worth it. So for this next news item, we had two posts made by a person claiming that their Anbernic RG35XXSP exploded like it caught on fire. So the first post, it was deleted since, but the first post was complaining that the device was not working and that it was making a high-pitched sound. I actually have a video of it, I think. I'm going to show that. I recorded it earlier. Sometimes I do multiple takes of these episodes, so thankfully I had video footage of that. And then they claim that the person they talked to on Anbernic's end suggested they charge it more. And then they came back later, they claimed that it was in their garage. They heard a fizzling sound, and then when they went in, it was toasted. So there's some things that don't really add up with these posts, but I'm going to give the OP the benefit of the doubt. I mean, let's delete it, so that makes it even more fishier. But it's entirely possible that a device may catch on fire. Now, I've been reading the subreddits for roughly 6 months straight, every day, multiple times a day. I've never seen a single post about a device catching on fire. I've seen a handful of posts with spicy pillows, like the battery expanding. Now that may catch on fire, so you want to be very careful. The closest one I saw was on the RGB30 where the battery was leaking. And if they had used the battery again, if they charged it or did anything with it, it would have caught on fire. But yeah, so people were worried, hey, is this gonna happen? I saw some references to this post on other websites, and I don't think there's a massive defect. You never know though. So I wanted to bring this post up because there are a bunch of people who are saying that it's safe to use the quick charge or power delivery bricks and bricks with high wattages. And I'm gonna say that's not entirely true. Their stance on why this is safe is that there's a handshake protocol in place for these devices, and that if the handshake fails, the brick defaults to a lower voltage and amperage. This is just not true because if the handshake doesn't happen correctly in the first place, then you may end up with a situation where you're gonna get a higher voltage and maybe amperage than you want, and it will fry the device. Now, these devices, these manufacturers, they cut a lot of corners, and that's why it doesn't work properly. That's why a lot of USB-C to USB-C cables don't work properly. I think the main reason I heard, and this may be true, I'll do some testing later once I have more money in the budget. But essentially, USB-C cables, USB-C to USB-C cables have a little chip in it. They call it being E-marked, and that chip kind of prevents it from working properly. So you want to get non-E-marked USB-C to USB-C cables, and they may work properly. Now, another funny thing is because of these shortcuts they took, the USB-C to USB-C cable may work, but it only works in one orientation. So if you plug it in one way and it doesn't work, take it out, flip it upside down, and plug it back in, and then that may work. So, but yeah, I wouldn't risk it. Just use a USB-A to USB-C cable. Use a dumb brick with a low voltage. Just be safe, because these devices are not spec'd properly. So you may actually do harm to the battery by taking the device from some random dude who's not an engineer online. And there's no evidence to back up what they're saying. Now, there's no evidence to back up what I'm saying as well, but I've seen plenty of comments of people who used these bricks and reported that their device wasn't working, that the battery was feeling very hot, and that is a dangerous sign. So again, take everything with a grain of salt, but you do whatever works for you guys. Alright, now we're going into new hardware, and we have this post from Charlie MTL in the Legion Go subreddit. The post is titled, "A Lenovo Legion Go quote-unquote Lite draws near." So I think this is really awesome. I think for every post, I think this should be standard practice. You should report your source and then the person credited for writing that article, and then link the actual source. I like that because then we can trace where the news is coming from. That's why I post all the sources I use in the comments. If it doesn't fit in the 5,000 character limit YouTube description, I'll have a paste bin with all the sources I use. But yeah, here we are. The website is windowscentral.com, and the article was published by Jez Gordon, sorry. And the reason why I don't like this article, this makes sense, and I'll explain why it happens. So most quote-unquote news or articles that you read online nowadays are written solely for the purpose of appearing on search engines. It's SEO optimized or search engine optimized. I guess that's redundant, search engine optimization optimized. But yeah, so there's a lot of buzzwords about the Legion Go here, but the entire news that we have is we're not entirely sure exactly what those refinements will be, but the Lite moniker could give us some hints. So essentially what they're saying is they know that a Lite version might come out, but we don't know anything about it, and there's this entire article written about it. I understand why people do it, because this is how you make money. You have to get clicks, and then you service people with ads, and then you generate profit that way. So I totally get it. But yeah, so there might be a Legion Go Lite coming out. I don't know if people are interested in that, but I'm kind of curious to see what the Lite entails. Like, is it a smaller screen? Is it going to have the controllers not detachable? Is it going to have a smaller battery? Like, what is it going to have? So interested in seeing what that's like. Personally speaking, I have no interest in the handheld PCs because, I just like these retro handhelds. I'm only going to play retro games. So if I want a game, I'll just play on my desktop. I do have a Steam Deck, so I'll use my Steam Deck as well. Okay, speaking of another handheld, we have this post from Tiny Independent 273 in the ROG Ally subreddit. This post is titled Zotac Zone Leaked Images as Well as Specs. So the article comes from PC Guide, and it was written by Jack Goodall. So this is another handheld. I'm not really familiar with the Zotac brand. I think I remember seeing some GPUs branded by Zotac, so they seem to make hardware as well. But yeah, the specs are kind of standard. We see that it has an AMD Ryzen 7 808040U. So that's very similar in terms of the performance to the 7840U apparently. The only benefit is that it has more AI stuff, and I don't get the AI craze, but just letting people know that performance-wise, it's probably going to be marginally better. And the interesting thing is it has a OLED screen, so that should look nice. Hall effect, everything, they have all the buzzwords, but there's something interesting here. So I really don't like blurry pictures. Just show the picture. Stop being a tease. I get what they're doing that too. This is also to kind of generate interest in terms of searches. So like if you give everyone all the news right away, then interest is going to die out. So what you want to do is you want a spike of interest, and then continue to have spikes periodically so that interest overall remains in this device and it stays relevant. So you don't want to front load all the news, but I really hate this trend. But we'll go over some interesting things. So it seems to have dual trackpads, which is pretty good because people who really like the Steam Deck, the one feature they want on these other handheld PCs are trackpads. They use it for a lot of things. It does come in handy when you're using desktop mode and you're not docked or you don't have a wireless mouse attached to it. So having trackpads is better than nothing, and a lot of people use it to map different commands to it. So a lot of gestures in games, they have it mapped to the trackpad and stuff like that. Also, another thing that's interesting is that it's D-pad first. That's pretty unusual because most modern games use the joystick first. So it has symmetrical joystick layouts, and I don't know how people will feel about that, but I thought that was very interesting as someone who's more retro gaming oriented, that this will be ideal because most of the time you use D-pad. Okay, moving on, we have some footage of the ZPG A1 Unicorn. This was a device I was very interested in, and this was posted by Keiju_47 in the Unbrick subreddit. The post is titled, I guess the Chinese launch of the ZPG A1 Unicorn happened, and the video link is from For the Next, and it is titled ZPG A1 Unicorn Arrives. So one thing I wanted to note here, the device actually looks well built, but again, take it with a grain of salt because people who review these things, these companies know their address unless you use like someone else to, buy the product and then ship it to you. So they may ship them like the best possible hardware revision. So always take it with a grain of salt. The build seems interesting. It's screwed on the sides, not on the back. And it seems pretty good. This guy gave some positive initial responses, and the reason why I have this angle here is that it looks pretty clean. Now they mentioned that the pre-order price was roughly 125 US dollars. I don't think it's gonna be that low when it comes out for foreign pricing. That was the domestic pre-order price, and when they release it globally, by domestic I mean in China, when they release it globally, it's usually way more expensive. So you can expect at least 150. I'm gonna guess it's more 170 to 200-ish. The reason why I say this is there were some pre-orders available on Aliexpress and it went for 200. So they claimed that it was not the official manufacturer and that was third party selling it, but how can a third party sell pre-order batches? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, maybe they're drop shipping. 200 is way too high. You can get a Retro Pocket 4 Pro for that price, or roughly, because you have to pay shipping and taxes. But yeah, if it's at 200, I don't think it's going to do well. But it looks nice. It looks pretty solid. Alright, something related to the ZPG A1 Unicorn, and I'm starting to get a little bit hyped about this console. It's the Anbernic RG Cube. This is from Upbeat Serve 6096 on the Anbernic subreddit. The post is titled RG Cube Official Demo, 3DS, PS2, Android games, game streaming, and USB-C display port out. The video comes from Anbernic's official YouTube channel. But yeah, I think I talked about this before. They have videos of it playing 3DS. It looks really smooth. They have PS2 performance. It looks pretty okay. And I just wanted to show this shot of all the colorways. It looks pretty nice. It looks like it's gonna be a solid console. Obviously, we won't know until it comes out, and I'm very interested in the pricing. And one thing that is a little bit mind-boggling is, obviously, I want it as cheap as possible, right? So there was like a survey Anbernic was doing, and people were putting in high prices. I was like, you fools! Why would you do that? Do you guys not know how to bargain? So in Asian culture, you never offer the price that you really want. If you're the buyer, you always go lower than you want because the seller's gonna bump it up. If you're the seller, you never go lower than what you want. You always start high and then work your way down to the price that you want. I hope it's priced at 150, but it's probably gonna be closer to 170-ish when it comes out. We don't know. But I put 130 because I want it as low as possible. So other people are putting it on like 150, 170. I was like, what are you guys doing? The more you put it up, the more higher Anbernic's gonna price it. Dang it. Anyways, I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, looking forward to it. I think it might be worth picking up if you want 3DS or DS emulation, or just, a better built RGB30, because this seems to be more solid and probably gonna have less problems. The only problem is that it's going to be way more expensive, though it may price it out of those people's budget. Okay, so I included this. I think the RGB20SX is becoming Powkitty's probably best device. Now, take this with a grain of salt. Powkitty has terrible QA. So one of their most popular devices is the RGB30, at least in the retro handheld crowd, and the general TikTok crowd is the RGB20S. But it has a lot of problems, so it's very inconsistent. A lot of people got units that are perfect, and then other people got units that had too many problems, like the screen was busted, The general build quality was busted, the battery was busted, and I covered last time the battery almost exploded. So be very careful when purchasing from Powkiddy. But this one seems to be better built, and this video comes from Retro Tech Dad, and the video is Modern Game Boy Color Powkiddy RGB20SX, in-depth review, unboxing, teardown, emulation, and Pico 8. And the one thing that I wanted to point out was they seem to have put more thought and effort into this handheld. They put in these little pads on the trigger buttons to kind of make it more quiet and responsive. So when I see these little touches, it's a good sign. But yeah, it doesn't mean jack squat. These devices are still very iffy when it comes to the Q8 process. I found some funny mishaps that I'll post for next week's episode, but yeah. Just thought I will leave that as a note here, so if you were considering buying the RGB30 and you don't mind a vertical handheld format, the RGB20SX might be a little bit better built. Okay, speaking of the RGB30, there's a new clone called the R40S. This was posted by Diabetic Dinosaur 666 in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled R40S Review RGB30 Clone, and the video comes from the YouTube channel Creative Gaming. The video is titled R40S Retro Gaming Handheld Review, the Powkiddy RGB30 clone featuring broken controls. And yeah, this reviewer ripped it apart. So they're saying that the controls made it pretty unusable. So the D-pad sinks into the console, making it very hard to use. And as you can see here for the shoulder button, that's almost flush with the case. And if you try to push it down, it sinks into the case and you can't really activate it. So I don't know if this is like something wrong with the initial batches, but if every console like this, I can't recommend anyone buy it, because what you have to do is take it apart and then you have to put foam in between the button and the switch to make it usable, and that's too much work for, you know, the price. If it was way cheaper, I would understand you having to put in some work, because the overall device looks okay, but the controls are a mess. So it's unfortunate. If you want more information, you can check out this review. I was very interested in seeing this device because, you know, it's kind of interesting when a device becomes popular and then other people clone it. I want to see what they can improve or do differently. And unfortunately, this seems like it's worse. So I don't know how that's possible. But yeah, it's worse. Oh boy, it's getting hot in here now. I don't have the AC turned on to save money, but I might have to turn it on soon. This post is from Tuski in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post title is Taki Udon is developing a handheld based on the Mr. FPGA. And the video comes from Taki's second YouTube channel, Taki 2. The video title is The 99 Mr. FPGA Board is Almost Here. So this was the news that Jack was referencing to, and it's fairly interesting. So the Mr. is just an FPGA board. I think it can play up to PS1 as far as I know, maybe a little bit of Saturn as well. But it was kind of like a niche item, and the prices shot up. So it used to be low, but now it's priced out of most everyone's budget for what it does. And so it's nice to see Taki step in and make a clone for $100. Now, I know people clown on Taki. I really don't care, because I know people like or dislike certain outlets or content creators, channels, or whatever you want to call them. But for me, I think it's best to kind of stay more objective and see what news you can pull from these channels. So whenever I show a channel, I'm not endorsing them. I'm just showing where I got my info from, so you can look at it and verify it for yourself. But the way that I look at it, I don't really want to only get my news from people that I like. You know, that will only create an echo chamber. So I want to get as much objective information as possible. And unfortunately for a lot of people, it may not be so objective. There's a lot of people who are very dishonest and are selling a product to make money. And I understand, because it's more of like a job to them. But it comes at the cost of reliability and trust. So there's some channels where I just don't trust anything, because they've been known to sell out. But yeah, even those channels have valuable information sometimes. So I look at every source that I possibly can if I'm interested in something. Going back to this thing, I didn't see any mention of the handheld stuff. So I would like to find more info about that. $150 OLED handheld that can play up to PS1. That's made just for those retro games would be very interesting. That's what I wanted the Neo Pocket DMG to be, but it's not that. So, all right, for this next news item, we have this interesting console. It was posted by MindLuge in the SBC gaming subreddit. The post is titled M5Stack Cardputer. Exciting new platform I haven't seen posted here yet. So I don't know if I would call it exciting, but it seems very interesting. It's a little computer, and it seems more for people who want to tinker around and develop stuff. So if you wanted one, it's $30. You can go to this website, shop.m5stack.com. I haven't really dug deep into the reviews of this product, but you know, I thought it was something new and it might appeal to a very niche audience. Alright, so I covered the Evercade EXP-R and the VSR a while back, but we have a little bit more news. This was posted by Wade Turtle in the SBC gaming subreddit. Evercade EXP-R and Evercade VSR consoles launched this July. And the article comes from Time Extension and it was written by Damian McFerrin. I just went straight to the Amazon post, so if you scroll down here, it is coming out July 31st. At least that is the written release date. And beforehand, you could have pre-ordered, but now you can't. So they seem to be out of stock. I don't know if it will be back in stock, but yeah. It was $100 for both versions. For $100, it seems okay, but I would prefer a different handheld. The build quality on these are probably going to be a little bit better because they seem to be a more reputable company, but you never know. Okay, now we're going into buyer advice, and I saw two posts. I don't know how this happened, but this was from According Swim 6130 in the Miyoo Mini subreddit. Possibly just got scammed, beware this page. So they bought a Miyoo Mini Plus from officialmiyoomini.com, and it's a scam website. There's another post from Greenhouse Santa in the Miyoo Mini subreddit, and they bought theirs from MiyooMiniV2.com, and that is also most likely a scam site. I'm just gonna say, Aliexpress, there's a lot of scams going on for sure, but you can trust them to a certain degree. This is the only official store. It's on Aliexpress. It's called the Miyoo Official Store, and they sell their products here. Now, it's not the cheapest here. You can buy it from other stores. But if you do, just do your research. It doesn't take that long. Hover over the store and then look at their item description, communication, and shipping speed scores. If it's below 4.5 or something, be a little bit wary. Also, just make sure that there are a lot of items sold. If there's a listing where they're like, oh, the store has been open this month, and then they sold 1 unit, be very careful. So there's another example where there's a store and it's just a bunch of numbers. Typically those are scams, but not always. Just look at when they opened, look at their credibility score, and look at how many units they sold, and then read the reviews. There'll be people saying, hey, I got headphones instead of the actual console. That was from the Palm Fun store, so be very careful. Some stores may be a bit more scammy than others, but usually this store is reliable, the official Miyoo store. Also, I've ordered from Cute's Living Store. That has been mostly reliable. The only downsides I saw were from last month. On the first of the month, there's always a sale on Aliexpress. Some people bought the TrimUI Smart Pro from them and it didn't ship. They might have run out of stock. But yeah, just do your research. Aliexpress is possibly the best place to shop unless you can't buy from Aliexpress. But yeah, same thing, just always do your research. Don't go to some random website and buy these products. So here's an example of the TrimUI Smart Pro listing. It's $51 with no card. This is a pretty good price. There's also some coupons you can use. This is the Cute's Living Store I was talking about before. And their ratings are pretty good. And you can see that they sold 2,000 or 10,000 plus so far, and they have 2,408 reviews. Now, these numbers can be fake, so always take it with a grain of salt. It's just more of an indication whether the store is likely to deliver your product. It's not a guarantee. But if you're shopping in the first of the month, there's always a sale, and you can go to the coupons here. and then you have to collect the coupons, and then they'll display. You can't just type in the code there. You have to collect the coupons from the page here. You can also collect points by logging in the website. That said, I don't trust Aliexpress. I have an entire video dedicated to shopping as safely as possible on Aliexpress. You can refer to that. I'll link that as well. But yeah, don't use your actual email. Make an email just for Aliexpress. Don't use your actual phone number. Use a Google Voice phone number or another service that provides you a fake phone number that you can actually receive calls from. If possible, don't use your address. That's a little bit hard for most people. The only way that I can see it happen is if you ship it to your work address. And if your boss is fine with that, you can do that. And try not to use your name if possible. Never put in your credit card information into AliExpress. Always use PayPal or a virtual card, privacy card. But yeah. Even though taking these steps, this is still the best place where you can get the product and not get scammed most times. Okay, moving on. Now I have a series of posts. These posts still happen, and I had someone save for a while. As you can see, this one's from 2 months ago. It was posted by Proof Football 6070. RG35XX turns on but never boots up. Listen, fellas, the microSD card is very, very faulty. And if something happens to the microSD card, for Unbrick products especially, it may not charge even. So, I don't know why they built it that way, but if the SD card isn't working properly, it may not charge, it may not boot up, or the games may not run correctly. So I'm not in the crowd where I'm saying you have to replace the microSD card. I'm saying that just be aware that this is an issue, and if it happens, then you're gonna have to replace it most of the time. If it's a single FAT32 partition or exFAT partition, you can try running check disk. I don't know why no one mentioned that, because that works for me for cases where the corruption is very small. But the problem is if the memory is getting corrupted and the firmware doesn't map the corrupt sectors, then it's just going to get corrupted again. So other sectors of the memory can get corrupted as well. So it's just an untrustworthy card, and the longevity is questionable. So I've seen people where they're like, oh, I've used mine for a year and it's fine. That's good for you. That means you got a good card. But other people, I've seen it fail literally in the first day they got their device. So just be aware this is an issue. I'll show some other examples. We got this post from Lala Man in the Unbrick subreddit. New RG35XX Plus first boot stuck at the Unbrick logo. Again, you may not boot. We have this example from Realizement in the SBC Gaming subreddit about a month ago. R36S bricked already. Yeah, it can happen to any handheld. We have another example from Equivalent Shake 572 in the Palkity subreddit. My RGB20S has stopped launching most games. The game either runs with audio but no picture, or it kicks me out. The only exception are a couple of consoles. It worked perfectly before I started messing around with options. There's a list of consoles work. Which consoles work? I tried everything. Please help. It's entirely possible that they messed it up as well, but it could also be the SD card dying as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind. The SD card is very faulty, and if you care about your saves, just back them up. I don't think it's necessary to swap it right away if you don't really care too much. If you do, then swap it right away. The moment you get the device, swap the SD card out. But if you don't care, just back up your saves, and when it fails, you're like, just get a new one, I guess. Okay, so I wanted to bring this up because there's a lot of misinformation floating around, and I wanted to clarify. This is from Dry Investigator 32222. Question about SD cards, and they're asking how do I avoid bad or counterfeit cards? And there's a piece of advice here where someone was saying if you buy shipped by Amazon and sold by Amazon, then you won't get a fake card, and that is just wrong. I'm going to show you examples and I'm going to disprove it right away. Also, another thing, I saw a post going around where the SP from Unbrick is using Toshiba cards. There's no guarantee. Just because it says it's made by Toshiba, I think it's Coxia, that's the brand they put on there, doesn't mean it's actually made by Toshiba. You have to test it out. Don't trust it, okay? Unless you test it out for yourself and you realize it's reliable. That's really dumb to rely on it based on how it looks. Alright, so SanDisk is one of the most popular recommendations I see, and for me, if you live in North America and you're going to buy from Amazon, I would actually not recommend SanDisk, and here's why. So we see this listing for the SanDisk 256GB Ultra, and then what you want to do is look here, and it says ships from Amazon and sold by Amazon, so you're like, oh, must be good, right? No, it's not good. So what you want to do is you want to scroll down here, and you want to see the other sellers. Now you can ignore, an Amazon warehouse you can ignore. Amazon warehouse is from Amazon, but they may sell counterfeit goods. So just ignore the used listings. What you want to see is if it's shipping from Amazon, but is sold by someone else. So we got mobile deals is in the commingled inventory. So what Amazon does is if everyone's selling on this listing and they're shipping out from Amazon, they dump it into one pile. It's called a commingled inventory. So if you buy from Amazon, they're going to pull it out from the same pile that mobile deals put into. So Direct Suppliers US is also in the same pile. First Choice Online is also in the same pile. eTech is also in the same pile. Tagasa LLC is also in the same pile. And so if one of these companies brought in some counterfeits, even if you order from Amazon itself, you may get a counterfeit. If you don't believe me, you can look up how Amazon handles an inventory. It's called commingled inventory. I have a video dedicated just to buying SD cards. I'll link that as well if you want to check it out. But yeah, for these other listings, you don't have to worry because they're shipping from the seller itself. So when I see this, there's a heavy possibility that you may get a counterfeit. So let's look at the reviews. You want to click here. And this is very annoying because Amazon makes it a little bit difficult to get to all the reviews. You're going to scroll down. You're going to see the See More Reviews link. Click that. And then you're going to sort by most recent. Hot reviews are usually always positive. And then you're going to go to the single star and you're going to read through it. And so there's some reviews where you can kind of attribute to user error. There's somewhere like, oh, my capacity is like a 109 gigabytes out of 128. Why is it so low? That's they just don't know, but this is a thing that's been happening. So for computers, they use binary. If you don't know what binary is, you know, it's 2 to the power of whatever, and that's what each digit means. So the first digit is 2 to the 0th power, so it's 1. The next one is 2 to the first power, which is 2, 2 to the second power, 4, 8, 16. So it's multiples of 2. And that's what each digit means. So if, for example, in binary, 101 means 4 plus 0 plus 1. So that number is 5. I'm just briefly glossing over this. So when they say kilobytes, megabytes, etc., they're talking about 2 to the power of 10, which is 1024. The advertised spec of 1 gigabyte, 1 megabyte, whatever, those manufacturers use 1000. So it's missing 24. That's why the advertised storage is always going to be more than the actual capacity, because in bytes it's 1024 versus 1000. So it's always going to be lower. It's just putting that out there. So if you see reviews like that, they just don't know that, you know, the difference between the manufacturer saying whatever megabyte versus the computer reading megabytes, completely different. But this one is really egregious. So here we see that this is a fake card with the context painted on. It's not even a real microSD card. This is ridiculous. How is Amazon letting this happen? The packaging looks legitimate too, so you can't judge it by the packaging. It's literally a fake card. It doesn't even work. So yeah, be very careful. 1 terabyte cards are especially counterfeited. So for an example of a listing you can trust on Amazon, we have the Samsung Pro Plus microSD card. You can see that it ships from Amazon and is sold from Amazon, but let's do the check for other sellers here. We're going to click on this, and again, we want to see if there's anyone selling from Amazon that is another seller that is not Amazon. They're shipping from Amazon, but they're not from Amazon. So again, we can ignore the use an Amazon warehouse. So we got Mobile Monster, but it's shipping from their own warehouses. New Digital Era, etc. Adorama. So we can buy it from this listing, and we can assume that we're going to get a legitimate card. I would check it out. Samsung has a utility to verify if the microSD card is legitimate or not, so you can download it from their website. But yeah, they still have possibilities of counterfeits. Again, doing the same thing. You can see that someone got a 32GB card instead of 256. Now, this is most likely from one of the third-party vendors. If it's from Amazon themselves, and there's a bigger issue than commingled inventory, where counterfeits are making their way into the actual inventory, that means nothing is trustworthy on Amazon. But yeah, I'm assuming that this is from third parties. But always do your research. The best place to get micro SD cards is from a brick and mortar store where they don't commingle their inventory. They get it direct from the manufacturer. You can also trust camera stores like PH Photo, Adorama. There's a lot of web stores on eBay and Amazon where they take their gear a little bit more seriously. You're more likely to get a legitimate card from those places as well. So yeah, just be careful. Just because someone online said it's good doesn't mean it's good. Also, when you get your card, there's tests you can do for capacity, for read-write speeds, H2 test W, crystal disk mark. There's a lot of things you can do to make sure it's legitimate. Alright, now we have this post from Wade Turtle in the SBC Gaming subreddit. It's titled, "You can now unbrick any Sony PSP," and I wanted to talk about this way earlier. As you can see, it's from 2 months ago. But the article comes from Time Extension. It was written by Damian McFerrin. And there's a utility here at iSerig. I don't know how to pronounce it. But you can use this to unbrick any PSP potentially. So if you have a PSP where you try to install custom firmware and then you bricked it, you may be able to bring it back to life. I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I wanted to cover this for a while now, because I thought it might be useful to some people who have PSPs lying around that are just bricked. Alright, now we're going into bugs, fixes, and updates, and this one I think is pretty big. It was posted by SouthSoft5541 in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled, "First Public Release of Knulli for RG35XXH Plus and SP is live." You can go to the GitHub page. So before, it was behind a paywall. You had to donate or go to the Ko-fi page and then subscribe to get access to it. But now it's available for everyone. This is a fork of Batocera, and people seem to like it a lot, mainly because you can bling your OS out and make it look really good. Me, I don't really care, but a lot of people do, so it's also available for the TriMUI Smart Pro and the 28XX. So if you want to check it out, you can go check out their GitHub page and then download it for your version, and then you can try it out. There are some issues. It's not really very stable yet, so just keep that in mind. Okay, now we're going into some bugs for the SP. There's quite a bit because it did just launch, and again, the first batch is always the worst. There's a lot of, things they have to fix that they do later, and later versions should be a little bit more reliable in terms of it working properly. But yeah, this post comes from Ali Gumble in the Unbrick subreddit. The post is titled, "RG35XXSP freeze when menu button is pressed or a little pressure applied." So some people seem to have this problem, and apparently, according to the OP, this was caused by the rumble motor sinking down a bit, and it may be shorting some connections on the board, and that's why it's not working. So what they did was they just pushed it back up, and everything works fine now. So if you have this issue, you may want to open it up and check your rumble motor, see if anything is shorting there. But yeah, just thought I would mention that. Thank you very much for posting that, Ali Gumble. I really like it when people post problems and then fixes, because it's a really huge service to the community. Ideally, it shouldn't happen in the first place, but these companies, once again, the QA process is almost non-existent. Alright, this is a very sad problem, but we got this post from Raging Cajun91 in the Unbrick subreddit. RG35XXSP screen dead after 4 days of lightly using it. I did see some posts referring to the H version and the Plus version where the screen would die. Now, sometimes the ribbon cable just got unseated and you push it back in, but a lot of the times the screen is just busted and you have to get a new one. Just do keep in mind, you may get a lemon, It's possible, and we're gonna see more posts about the SP problems because right now it is, I think, the hottest console. Like everyone's getting it. Everyone is an exaggeration, not everyone, but a lot of people are getting it, and we're gonna see, more problems because there's just more people getting it. All right, so this is a fix. A lot of the people have been mentioning that the buttons require a lot of force to push. I think Russ from Retro Gamecore also showed it as well. There's a lot of reviewers where they're like, oh, it's a little bit, requires a little force and it's kind of loud. So the common fix that I've seen is just to put some tape on it and it makes it quieter and require less force. So this is from Sunflower in the SBC Gaming subreddit. Taping the buttons on the RG35XXSP drops the click resistance to a third. I would say just be a little bit wary because, when you're putting tape on something that has mechanical force applied to it, it wears down. So, some people are using like masking tape and stuff. I was like, don't do that. According to people who've done it before, it moves around or it like turns to dust or turns to goo. So you want to use electrical tape at the very least. But even then, I don't know about the longevity of the fix. It would be better to get a membrane of some sort and then put it under there. But obviously, you gotta get a membrane that fits that, so it's not gonna be available right away. Someone has to make it. So yeah, just saying, if you were bothered by the loud sounds of the SP or you wanted to have the buttons require less force, you can open it up. You just cut out a little square of tape and put it on the switch. That's it. But sometimes you might have to put one tape. Sometimes you might have to put two pieces of tape. You gotta kind of feel it out for yourself. Alright, this is the last fix we have, and it's a very interesting one. This comes from Mediocre Trick 3611 in the Retro subreddit. So, hi guys, please help me. I have just received the RP4 Pro, but the joysticks don't work. I have checked, the joysticks ribbon cables are okay, joysticks are okay, I can calibrate them. I can press the L3 and R3 button, but the Hall effect didn't work. I cannot move anything. I think it's a firmware issue. So if you have the RP4 Pro, or this may work for other Android-based devices, but your sticks are not working, there's two fixes here. So Injection mentioned that they had a similar problem, but the fix was to go to handheld settings, turn off the joysticks, calibrate the joysticks, no graphic will display but the coordinates in the lower corner will update, and then turn the joysticks back on, and it worked. I don't know why that works, and I don't know how you found it out, Injection, but thank you so much for posting this. Mediocre Trick, who is the OP, also mentioned that they tried the same thing but it didn't work, but then the last time they calibrated for the triggers and then turn on and off the joysticks again, and then it worked. So if Injection's solution doesn't work, you can try Mediocre Trick's solution. Yeah, I didn't really see a lot of people posting about this problem, but if your joysticks are not working, but you can calibrate them, this may be a fix for you. Again, thank you for posting this, and thank you for the people posting the solutions because, this is not a cheap device. This is at least like $220 or something after shipping and tax, maybe more. And for you to pay that much money and have it not work would be very frustrating, and sometimes you might not be able to get a replacement. So you have to fix it yourself, and in those cases, someone just coming in and be like, this is how you fix it, I think that's awesome. Alright, now we're moving into user creations. This one's pretty nifty. It was posted by TimCat UK in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled, "Since my last post on my mod, I refined it, and I think it looks a little bit better." So what they did was they removed the sticks from the RGB30, they added a little button so you can still press down on the analog stick. They kind of filled in the shell and they sanded it down, and I think it looks nice. Alright, I do want to mention here that if you want to do the same thing and you want to remove the analog sticks, but you don't want to put in that much work because you're a little bit afraid or you don't know how to do it, I do want to mention that this friendly fella named Ocelot08 has made free 3D printable files for you if you want to remove the analog sticks and have something in place on the plastic case to cover those holes. So you can refer back to this post, and they have a link here somewhere right here for free 3D printable files, and they also have one for the RG35XXH, I believe. So yeah, thank you, Ocelot. Some people do really hate those analog sticks, and if you're one of them, this will be doable for you. It might not look as nice as Tim's mod here, but you can achieve the same effect. Okay, this one is pretty darn neat in my opinion. So this was posted by Eternal Progression. The post is titled, "What do you guys think of this controller I built?" It was posted in the SBC Gaming subreddit. And they made this really neat looking like case for phones, and then it slides out a controller. So there was a similar post where someone made their own version where it just slides out, and what they did was it was a housing and they used an 8-bit controller, and then it looks sort of like this. So I think that was cool. It did look a little bit rough. This looks way nicer, and there's a lot of features that make it look pretty cool. I don't know how much it's gonna cost, but this person's gonna start selling it. And then Russ from Retro Gamecore responded, "That's pretty cool," and you might see a review video coming from Russ and the Fox as well. So if this is something you wanted, I think it's a great way to make use of your phone. Now, personally speaking, my phone is not very high end, so I won't be able to emulate very well on it. And secondly, I just don't want to install stuff on my phone. I want to keep it free of any apps, and I don't want to play games on it so I can save the battery power. So I'm kind of the crowd where I want to keep my phone safe as possible. But if you don't care, this may be a nice tool for you to add to your phone. It looks pretty cool. Speaking of cool things someone made, this post comes from Showfuls in the RG35XX subreddit. The post is titled "Custom Cabinet I've been working on, work in progress." So if you look here, it's an RG35XX that plugs in. There's a little dock, and then you get these wired joysticks, and then it uses the HDMI out or video out to connect to a monitor. It looks really nice. It looks clean. So the crazy thing is, if you scroll down here, this guy just figures stuff out. Like, how do you get the controls? He's like, I just started tweaking it until it worked. That guy is not a programmer. This goes to show that if you want to make your own mods, it just requires the will to do so, you know? That's crazy. Major props to you, man. We're just gonna keep the chain going. There's so many neat user creations. This one's from Fanturian in the Pal Kitty subreddit. The post is titled, "I made realistic arcade bezels for the RGB30. So this person is a huge fan of arcades, it seems like, and they made really nice looking bezels for your arcade systems. They realized that maybe you don't want to play with bezels, so you can set it up. It's compatible with Final Burn Neo and MAME, so that you can have one system dedicated to no bezels, and then one system having the bezels, so you can pick and choose how you want to play." I thought that was very thoughtful, and if you look at the bezels themselves, they look really nice. So if you wanted to play with bezels, I highly recommend checking it out. There's just a free download link here, and you can just download it. You can also choose your different OS versions, ArcOS or GelOS/Rocknix. They put in a lot of work. I think that's awesome. Okay, going along the theme of bezels, we have this post from SkyPM in the SBC Gaming subreddit. The post is titled, "My Ultimate Guide on the Perfect Overlays. How to get the GBA, GBC, GB, and home consoles to look great on 640 by 480 screens." So this person is taking the filters or overlays from One Player Insert Coin. You see that person a lot credited to making really good overlays. And then other people like Mugwomp, Dark Horse, doing some work for making those overlays and making bezels work on other systems. And so if you are the type of person where you want the screen to look like the original systems or have like a CRT effect, or you want these bezels, you can go to their GitHub page, and there's a lot of detailed instructions, and you can kind of pick and choose what effect you want. Personally, I just play without bezels. First of all, I'm too lazy to find it. Secondly, I just don't care. I think it looks fine without it. But I know there's enough people out there where they really love this effect. So if you really love this and you don't know how to do it, just refer to this post, and then you can go check it out and do it for yourself. It'll most likely work, but if it doesn't, you might have to tweak it just a little bit. Alright, now we're moving on to channel spotlight. We got this post from M. Heyman in the SBC Gaming subreddit. They're self-promoting. The post is titled, "I'm a fan of the RGB30. And the reason why I wanted to pick this This is one of the most cinematic channels I've seen for retro handheld stuff. Let's just take a look here, a small clip. The shots, the lighting, the cinematography all look really good. It's crazy how good it is. There's only a few people where the video production feels like on another level. TechDweeb is really good. I don't go to TechDweeb for information. I go for entertainment if I do watch a video because I think it's well shot. Macho Nacho Productions has some work in there, like with the intro sequences, some of the transitions, some of the effects. He does a really good job. And then Retro Tech Dad has some really nice work on the transitions, like the intro sequences of his videos. They're pretty smooth. There's some parts where it looks like it's shot handheld and it could be made a bit smoother with like a gimbal. But yeah, it looks really good. Like I can't do it. Even Russ has little like animations and stuff, and I think he does everything on his own. So yeah, when I see that, I'm like, oh, they put in a lot of work. Now, this review is super entertaining, but it's not very information based in my opinion. So, like for these channels, they're more entertainment combined with information as well. But it just looks so good. It looks fantastic. Alright, that's gonna be it. Thank you guys so much for dropping by and watching. I really do appreciate it. If there's any questions, if there's anything that gets you excited, if you got opinions on anything, please leave a comment. I would love to read all of them. And I'll respond in next week's episode. Unless you don't want me to, then just leave a note saying, please don't read my comment. But yeah, I think we're finally getting to the point where the news cycle is slowing down just a little bit. I'm finally going through my backlog. I'm almost done. I think one more episode and I would have worked through most of my backlog. So we'll finally get to the point where we can have shorter episodes and have it be more digestible. I don't know if people like the long episodes or if they want shorter ones. But yeah, it takes a while to accumulate news to make these long episodes, and I've just been a little bit delayed in releasing them, so that's why I have a huge backlog. But yeah, finally working through it. It should be a little bit shorter. Also, one thing, there is a sale going on Aliexpress. It happens the first 5 days or so, maybe first 8 days or so of every month. There's also a sale happening in the middle of June. So if you missed out on a sale, don't worry. It should be back next month. So never feel pressure to buy anything. I'm not of the mindset where you just want to mindlessly buy stuff, especially for these devices, because if you're not going to use it, the battery is always going to be a concern. However, I did recently buy a MIUI Smart Pro, mainly for the purposes of making guides and reviews, because I think it is one of the best handhelds you can get for roughly 50 bucks. And so I want to cover it. I have a lot of handhelds that I want to make guides and reviews for that I'm just waiting for certain things. So for the RG35XXSP, I was waiting for Knulli to come out so I can finally, cover it and make a proper review. For the M17, I'm also waiting for Knulli to come out for it. The main developer, Acme Plus, said that Baudicero or Knulli should be updated to work for the 3rd revision of the M17. So I'm waiting for that because I'm excited to see how it would transform the console. For me, I really like the M17 for playing Game Boy Advance games. Something about like a cheap handheld that makes you more likely to play it because you're less worried about breaking it, or losing it. If you do, it's not a big deal, whereas these more expensive, nicer ones, it's a little bit more risky if you're gonna take it out everywhere, right? It might get stolen, you might scratch it up. So you're kind of worried in the back of your mind. At least I am. I really like these cheaper handhelds. Also, the face buttons feel better than the H's. They're a little bit stiff, so I might have to break in the membrane just a little bit. But yeah, I like making guides. I buy these handhelds because people ask me questions about it, so I want the actual device so I can actually, work out the problem and give a solution that I found myself or verified myself at the very least. That's the main reason why I get these devices. For me, I just need one. I don't care which one it is. I mostly play Game Boy Advance games, so anything that can play Game Boy Advance is fine with me. Okay, man, it's getting hot in here. I might go turn on the AC for a little bit. That's gonna be it. Once again, thank you so much for dropping by. And as always, hope you guys are staying safe and seeing out there. And catch you guys next time.